It's certainly surely the case that just as no one can stand and say science can disprove God, it's also the case that you can't find anything in the historical records that can be, if you like, proven to be wrong either.
Yes, that's right. I mean, that's because science studies the repeatable. Scientific truths are true in virtue of their having been repeated empirically and through the hypothetico-deductive model, and history relies on the unrepeatable, the once and only once. Of course, we look for patterns in history. We look for ways that it might rhyme, but we're dealing with a different category of human inquiry. And to go back to your question, I mean, not only, my view is that not only is there, I don't think there's such a thing as a scientific proof. In fact, I don't think science can prove itself. When you're using the language of proof, you're really only using the language of mathematics. The only proofs you get are in mathematics. Give you an example, if we were to find out that children were reading physics textbooks from the 1920s, we'd be worried. Why? Because physics textbooks of the 1920s don't contain proofs. They contain the best scientific theorizing of the 1920s. But theorizing, that thinking develops. It develops. Mathematical textbooks, well, we'd be delighted if children were working with mathematical textbooks from the 1920s. Why? Because mathematics there are theorems in mathematics. There are only theories in science, and science is falsifying itself all the time. And science can't prove itself because science itself relies on prior truths being true. Notoriously, science relies on mathematical truths being true. And mathematical truths are not scientific truths. Scientific truths presuppose mathematical truths, and the more science we do, the more physics we do, the more mathematical it gets. But mathematics is even more than history. History at least happens once. Mathematics doesn't happen at all, and yet it's always and everywhere true. That 2 + 2 = 4. You can't date it. Those truths are necessarily true. They don't begin to be true. They don't cease to be true. They are rock solid truths. You can develop proofs from them, and they're more rock solid than any scientific conjecture or any scientific theory that's ever been formulated.